Okay, so as a reminder for all of you who are here with us today, we are going to be talking about the Allegheny County Climate Action Plan. This is our third community meeting during this phase of the planning process here on the 23rd of October. I want to welcome all of you and thank you all for attending and giving us your time this evening. Our intention is that this will probably go through 8 o'clock, but most of the formal presentation will be finished with that, so you can stick around while we do some Q&A towards the end of the session. Just to ground us all in kind of where we are as a space, um, the county is home to just over 1 million people. We have 130 different municipalities throughout Allegheny County, each local jurisdiction. The county government itself is made up of 7 offices, which includes the county executive's office, county council, the district attorney's office, county treasurers, the controller's office, court of common pleas, and the county sheriff's. Underneath of the county executive's office, this is our administrative arm. There are 21 different departments, and that includes the county's Department of Economic Development, Sustainability, Parks, Public Works, and more. I also want us all to recognize that here in Pennsylvania, there are 3 levels of government. We have our state government, our county, and our local municipal government, each with their own powers. Our state is technically the ultimate legal authority underneath the federal government. Counties are typically an administrative arm of the state, and we handle things like judicial administration and elections, and we provide additional services like human services, property assessments, and more. Municipalities have greater autonomy, allowing them to govern their local affairs, such as planning and zoning, water and sewer services, refuse and recycling, and even operate their own fire, police, ambulance, and other services. This plan is going to follow along and build off of the All in Allegheny Action Plan that was published last year from our county executive. In addition, we're going to be aligning this plan with some other planning efforts that are happening across the county. That includes a hazard mitigation plan update that should be published towards the end of this year or early next year. It includes a land bank feasibility report and an economic impact analysis that economic development is going to be doing, a housing needs assessment, review of the Mon Valley Economic Development Study, and then finally an update to the county's comprehensive plan, which is ongoing now. And we are doing a lot of coordination with economic development and their planning division as they continue to move through that process. And we do anticipate a public launch and communication soon with public surveys and events for the comprehensive plan. Although this is not the in-person, I do want to acknowledge the county's Department of Sustainability staff. There are 6 of us, and without their effort, this would not be a successful event, nor would our climate action planning engagement plan be successful either. So I do want to thank all of them for their support in this process. I want to take a quick moment to thank and acknowledge our climate action plan consultant team. This includes staff from ICF, Evolve EA, Black Girl Green World, Alan and Sharif, and Notoria Marketing. Next, I want to thank our sponsors and our other partners that have helped make these events successful. Our community and county partners. Global Wordsmith is supporting our interpretation services during these events. And we have staff from economic development, children's initiatives, the health department, and facilities management, all helping support our community events. We also have sponsors for our giveaways, the County Parks Department, Phipps Conservatory, Urban Air, Heinz History Center, Chipotle, East End Co-op, and the National Aviary have all donated tickets of some sort, and they will be part of our prizes. There are 16 available, and they will be passed out randomly based on attendees and registration. If you are one of our lucky recipients, you'll receive an email following the meeting to connect with you about getting you your door prize. And we thank all of those sponsors. I apologize. This agenda is actually incorrect. This is from our in-person meeting. So you can ignore the timing of it. But essentially, we've done our introduction. We're going to do a project overview to give you an idea about the Climate Action Plan itself and our schedule. We're going to deep dive into the county-wide carbon emissions inventory that we have. And then we'll talk about engagement throughout the session. And so we wanted to make sure that this virtual meeting has the same content and engagement opportunities as our in-person. And so our station engagement that took place kind of live, that will actually be embedded into and throughout the presentation. And you will be able to participate through Kahoot. So we're going to start with our project overview. So this is one of our first questions for you all. We would like to know, what is one action that you take to help the environment? So you should be able to enter your answer in the Kahoot program that you have open. We'll give everyone about a minute and a half to kind of answer. Again, be respectful with what you put into the engagement question here, but excited to hear what folks have mentioned. Got some answers coming through. All right. Okay, so look at all these great actions that everyone's taking. As a reminder for anyone who's just joined, we're using a Kahoot program. So if you just joined and haven't logged in, if you go to www.kahoot.it, it'll ask you for a PIN. And you can see here at the bottom of the Zoom screen, the PIN is 8282878. And you can answer questions as we go through the engagement. So we've got some suggestions here, stuff like voting, using reusable water bottles, taking public transportation, eating more plant-forward meals, planting native flowers, and volunteering with organizations doing the same, providing facts about serial polluting industrial entities. Someone's installed solar. They also have home batteries. I see recycling, not using generative AI, organizing. That's great. So advocacy work. We've got a lot of transit, rain barrels, some passive transit here. So walking, biking, making sure they're not driving alone, more recycling, reusing, buying clothing and items secondhand, using a smart thermometer. So we've got some more moving along here. Advocating for EVs. So organization I work for undertakes community greening work like tree planting, land conservation, green infrastructure, watershed protection, and community gardens. That's amazing. And one last one here, making land stewardship to be more inclusive of Indigenous peoples' sovereignty and their voices to be more integrated in decisions. All great things. Really appreciate everyone sharing that with us today. So we'll move into a little bit more of our overview. So what is a climate action plan? Specifically, this is a detailed roadmap. It can be put together by a city, a county, or even just an organization. And it specifically calls out how they're going to reduce harmful greenhouse gas emissions and improve their community. Some key features is that it's going to list specific actions to reduce those emissions, who is going to implement them, and then sets clear goals and milestones along the way. So essentially, it's going to be a to-do list with deadlines, and it's going to help us stay on top of those actions and move those forward. Why? So why is this important now? As you can see on your screen, there is a number of more extreme weather impacts and other actions that have been in the news lately, including air pollution issues, heat waves, disaster emergencies. We've had significant flooding, storm-related deaths, and power outages. So all of this, it shows us that we're seeing the impacts of climate change now, both at our local level and even our national level. It's important for us to reduce these emissions that cause climate change or attribute to climate change so we can avoid the worst impacts. And while we're also doing that, we're working to make sure that we build in resiliency into our communities so that we can bounce back from those extreme weather events or reduce the impacts themselves. So it's very important that we really keep moving on this. We also recognize that the county is a little behind on climate action at the county level. There's a number of great organizations and municipalities that have already been moving climate action planning forward in this area. And so as we go through this process, we do not want to start from scratch. The goal here is to make sure that we're building from what's already been happening and that we're going to be aligning the county's climate action plan with the decisions and the needs that have already been expressed by our residents and our communities. We also want to remember that change can begin at the local level. This map before you shows all of the states and metropolitan areas across the United States that have engaged in climate planning efforts. You can see that there's not many states that did not start a climate action plan, and there's a number of large metropolitan areas that all have begun their climate planning effort. What'll be nice with this process is although we can't control everything at the federal level, we do have some influence and control over our county level, our community level, and even our impact as individuals. And so we'll be moving this forward and identifying those strategies that we can have some influence and impact on. Our process is going to focus on what the county can do, as well as what our partners can do across the county and how we can impact the lives of our residents. So as I mentioned, change can begin at the local level, and we've had a number of efforts already around climate action planning. At the state level, they've published their latest update in 2024. We also have the City of Pittsburgh's initial climate action plan that was posted in 2018. They'll be doing an update chapter as part of their comprehensive planning effort this year. Connect, the Congress of Neighboring Communities, published a climate action plan in 2022 that on behalf of their member organizations, their member municipalities. We have an organization, Pittsburgh Regional Transit, that published their climate action plan last year. And then at the little bit larger regional level, SBC, which is the Southwest PA Commission, published their priority climate action plan at the end of last year, and will be publishing a comprehensive climate action plan on behalf of the 10 county region around Allegheny County later this year. We're really looking forward to setting a regional vision and aligning the county's climate action plan with all of these great works that are already ongoing in our communities. Although we're a little behind on the community level climate action plan, I do want to acknowledge that the county has been working on implementing and integrating sustainability best practices into county government. A number of efforts include investment in electric vehicles for the county fleet, installing solar panels in 2 of our county parks, and pursuing net zero certification. We have a number of energy efficiency projects for the county facilities, stormwater projects, and our many county parks. In addition, we continue to support our communities by hosting glass and hazardous waste or hard to recycle collection events throughout the county as well. So we have been moving some of this forward and looking forward to continuing to do more. So again, why is this so important? I'm hoping that most of you recognize this photo here. It's just one of many historical photos that shows where the air was so polluted here in Allegheny County and the city of Pittsburgh that they had to turn the street lights on in the middle of the day in order to be seen. Well, our region has cleaned up since those days. Our water, our air, and our soil quality is still polluted, and it impacts our health, our economy, and the environment. It also disproportionately affects communities of color and low-income residents, both historically and still today. Our climate action plan intends to equitably distribute the benefits and the burdens of climate action, and we're going to do our best to address those past harms. Not only do we want to address those past harms, but we want to use this climate action plan to improve the quality of life for all Allegheny County residents. And that is the feedback that we heard from most of you and many of you this summer as we began our engagement process. We want to make sure that these actions and strategies that we recommend, that they improve air quality, provide clean water, healthier homes, more transportation options, improve health outcomes, create jobs, and so much more. We kicked off the Climate Action Plan earlier this year and started our first rounds of community engagement over the summer. We attended so many different events out in the community, going to where the people are and making sure they had the opportunities to tell us what they valued and what their vision for a more sustainable Allegheny County was. Hopefully, many of you saw us. That feedback helped us start to pull together our vision and values and our goals for this plan. And so we directly engaged with over 2,400 people, along with 80 or more organizations that we met with in groups or one-on-one. This includes 530 online survey responses to our first round of questions, which included what is your vision for a more sustainable Allegheny County? And what are some of the values that you think are important that we include in this climate action plan? We attended over 37, almost 40 community events from June through the end of August, attended many regional coordination meetings, especially with those who are already doing climate action planning work. And we engaged in over 10 different speaking events to talk about the climate action plan and continued to get that engagement. In addition, we've had some external stakeholder meetings and internal stakeholder meetings with our county staff as well as the many organizations. So lots of engagement this summer that helped us build out that vision, values, and the goals for this plan. So I'm excited to share those with you now. So first off, our vision for this climate action plan is an Allegheny County where all people thrive and have a healthy environment because we take climate action together for our neighbors and for our future generations. And this was informed by many of these conversations that we had. It was really important that this is a plan where people are thriving, that we're including healthy environment, that we're doing this together. This isn't just the county coming up with strategies and trying to implement it. This is a space for all of us to work together. And that it's not just important for us and for now, but for our neighbors to be part of this and to benefit future generations. So here is another opportunity for you all to give us some feedback. We would love to know how this vision resonates with you. Do you think it resonates very strongly? Not at all. Keep in mind that this is our drafted vision and it still has opportunities to be modified before we have a final version. Um, so you should be able to select at the bottom of your screen the 1 to 5 options. Looking forward to folks' feedback. Okay. So some good results. So about 75 folks are around a 4. Lots of folks, 27% are very strongly. So this makes us feel pretty good about being able to take all of that feedback and make sure that it aligns with what the community expects from us. Excellent. So our goal that we developed um, is that by 2050, Allegheny County has healthy communities and a healthy environment, as well as affordable energy, convenient transportation, quality housing, and economic opportunity. This was important as part of our goals because although this is a carbon emissions reduction plan around climate action plan, we wanted to make sure we're building in resiliency. And so we set ourselves a target by 2050 and we're going to include both healthy communities, so healthy people, as well as our healthy ecosystems. And then we wanted to make sure to call out some important components around improvement to quality of life. And so we heard from many folks how important affordable energy was, convenient transportation, the quality housing, and making sure we have lots of economic opportunity as we move for this plan. In addition, you guys get to answer another question. Um, Beyond the language goal that I just shared with you, the other goal the county is proposing is a carbon neutrality county-wide, community-wide by 2050, which means that all emissions within the geographical boundaries of Allegheny County will be carbon neutral by 2050. And we're including the same goal for county operations. So excited to hear your thoughts on these proposed goals. You can select multiple options. So if you don't understand the goals, if you have questions about them, if you think it's great, if it's not ambitious. So it looks like we got some feedback already. Excellent. So it looks like we've got a couple of folks that have some questions about how we achieve the goals, which is perfectly reasonable. A couple of folks think it's great. A couple that are concerned it's not ambitious enough. And so what I want to note is that we're excited for those folks who have questions about how we achieve them. That's kind of where we're headed now, is talking about the strategies. And so as we dig into the data, you'll have an opportunity to evaluate some strategies we've already identified, as well as give us some suggestions on other strategies to consider. For those who are concerned it's not ambitious enough, I think we still value that feedback. What we want to recognize is that this is the large long-term goal, and we do hope to identify some short-term as well as some sector-specific goals as we go along the planning process. So thank you all for that feedback. So the last thing that the summer's engagement helped us to craft is some values. These are specific opportunities for us to evaluate strategies and prioritize outside of direct carbon emissions reductions. And so excited for you all to kind of give us some feedback on that. Essentially, we've identified 3 foundational values. The first is equity and inclusion. We want to ensure there's equitable access to climate solutions and meaningful participation in decisions and prioritizing historically underserved communities. For healthy and communities and environment, we want to make sure that we're improving the health of people and the health of local ecosystems, which could be resiliency based as well as carbon reduction based strategies. Our last value is economic opportunity. We want to make sure that we're increasing economic prosperity by creating opportunity and lowering costs. So here's another opportunity for you to give some feedback on each of these. So we'll start with our first value statement. So for equity and inclusion, we're asking what you think about it. So you have a thumbs up, you just like it. We have a love this if you're super excited about it. And then we have a question option if you're not quite sure about this. So excited to hear some feedback on those. And we'll do this for each of ours. All right, so we got some feedback. So we have a lot of likes, some questions, some concerns, maybe not concerns, but questions, and that's okay. We can kind of talk through those as we start thinking about strategies. A couple of folks really love it. Appreciate that as well. So let's look at the next one. So this is our healthy communities and environment one. So looking for some feedback, same options for this value statement. Okay. So again, little split here between like and love. Still a few questions here, so hopefully we'll be able to address what those questions are around this value statement. Last foundational value for your thoughts is economic opportunity. And so again, same options, like, love, and questions. I will also do a reminder, if the Kahoot is going too fast and you aren't able to offer your thoughts, our apologies. I cannot change how long it lets the question sit while you answer, but all of these same engagement opportunities, you can provide us feedback on the county website. So if you go to www.alleghenycounty.us/climate action plan, that'll take you to our engagement website, and you'll be able to answer these same questions on the website and provide that additional feedback. All right, so some feedback here. Still a decent percentage of folks liking this and loving this. So about a quarter loving it, or I'm sorry, we have a little bit more questions about this one. My apologies for reading this incorrectly. So about 25% folks are asking questions, which is interesting. I think that's the same type of feedback we had during some of our in-person meetings. Some folks were a little curious about the economic opportunity and how that connects with climate action planning. And so we want to make sure that we are a little bit more clear on this one as we move forward, and welcome any specific questions in the Q&A if folks want to add them. Okay, so back into project overview. So we just want to note how we're going to achieve this and what the plan for the I'm sorry, what the schedule is for the plan. So we had our vision and values was open this summer. That was from May through August, and all that community engagement. It helped us identify our goals and also start thinking about some sectors. We are now in the inventory and analysis phase, which is presenting the data, our community-wide carbon emissions inventory. We also have an internal county operations inventory, and we've completed a operational assessment as well, and we'll be digging through all of those results with our internal team as well as our external team, and that'll go through the end of this year. Our next phase will start in early 2026. And so that's our measures and strategies. And this is kind of, I think, one of our really ones that we can dig into, looking through the strategies that we're getting suggestions about, and then start to think about how we're prioritizing those. And we anticipate a drafted plan ready sometime in April, May of next year, an opportunity for some feedback on there. And then we're going to be celebrating and talking about a transition from planning to implementation towards the middle of 2026. We have a lot of work to do, and we're really just getting started, but I really appreciate any and all feedback that folks can give us to make sure that this plan meets the community's expectations. And so when we're finished, we will have a climate action plan that is on behalf of the county at large. And within that, we'll also have actions for the county government for us to improve and implement sustainability best practices into what the county is responsible for. All right, so now we get to dig into the data. I hope some of you guys are data geeks, and so this should be really good information. I'm also going to put a quick note out there that this countywide carbon emissions inventory that we're presenting is just a draft. We are refining it as we make sure that there's no overlap, no missing data. And so eventually our hope is to have this publicly available once we make sure that we're ready with a final version. So let's start with the basics to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So what are greenhouse gas emissions? They're invisible gases that get released into the air when we burn fossil fuels. And this happens when we do things like driving cars, heating buildings, making electricity. They're harmful, and the more we put into the atmosphere, the more our climate changes, which causes serious problems. And so this is what we're looking to address, is the fossil fuels that are burned and emitted within Allegheny County boundaries, and some opportunities for us to reduce those emissions. So what is a greenhouse gas emissions inventory? It specifically measures and tracks all of the GHG emissions that are released within our specific boundary, so within the geographical space of Allegheny County, and it identifies where they're coming from. So we're looking at specific sectors. The important part of this inventory is that it's going to help us determine where we should focus our efforts to reduce those emissions. It'll help us with prioritization. As I mentioned, This is our draft emissions inventory. We're still reviewing to make sure that there's no double counting and missing gaps. And so we'll start. What we decided is we're using 2024 data to help us create our inventory. We also do have inventory information for 2019, so we have a 5-year comparison, but what we're going to be presenting today by sector is based on 2024 data. It accounts for all of the emissions producing activities within the boundaries of Allegheny County. This includes every house, car, business, etc. So, da 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 da. In 2024, Allegheny County emitted 22 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. This is equivalent to 5 million gasoline-powered passenger vehicles for 1 year, 9.5 million homes electricity use in 1 year, or charging a single iPhone 1.6 trillion times. What we wanted to do, though, is dig into the sectors of where these emissions are coming from. And so we were able to break this into 5 main categories here. You can see the largest at 54.5% is our building sector. Our industrial sector accounts for just over or just under half of our total emissions in 2024. Transportation is our third largest at 17.3%. Waste accounts for 3.5%. And then we have these fugitive emissions that are less than 1%. In addition, you'll see forestry listed on here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But forestry isn't emissions producing, they are emissions storing or carbon sinks. And so we wanted to account for the impact of the green space and tree canopy within Allegheny County. And that offsets about 4% of our total emissions from 2024. Before we dig into the details of each of those sectors' emissions, we did want to show a comparison. So as I mentioned, we did an inventory for 2019 and 2024, and we saw a 13% decrease so far in our emissions over the last 5 years. Some of that could be attributed to a cleaner electric grid, any changes in our power generation's primary source of energy. It also accounts for weather changes over the last 5 years, including decreases in heating needs for our buildings. But I think we can take some responsibility for some of those emissions. We have some great organizations that operate in Allegheny County, including Green Building Alliance, which operates the 2030 district, and they are supporting commercial properties in reducing carbon emissions and have been very successful. So as we started to look at these emissions, we thought it would be helpful to compare ourselves to other counties. First, we want to note that the average carbon emissions produced per person within the United States is about 16.4 metric tons of carbon dioxide. In Pennsylvania, it's a little higher at 17.1, and this can be attributed to the fact that we have a lot more industrial efforts within Pennsylvania compared to other areas of the United States, so we're a little higher. So here is an opportunity for you to weigh in your thoughts. How do you think Allegheny County compares to the state average? Do you think that we are higher? If so, select true. If you think we are lower, select false. So most of you selected true, and that is correct. So Allegheny County, oops, got some scores there. Allegheny County produces 18.7 metric tons of carbon dioxide per person based on that 2024 data. So let's see how we compare to other communities. So our next one, how do you think Philadelphia compares to Allegheny County? Do you believe true that Philadelphia emissions per person is higher than Allegheny County? clock is ticking. All right, so we have about 17 folks that thought this was false, that Philadelphia is lower. And we had about 12 people that thought that this is true, that it is higher. So the result is Philadelphia is much lower than not just Allegheny County, but our state average as well. They produce about 10.4 metric tons of carbon dioxide per person. And again, some of this can be contributed to the fact that there's more industrial activity here in Allegheny County than in Philadelphia. So last comparison, let's think about Cuyahoga County, which is the home of Cleveland. And so do you think the Cuyahoga County emissions per person is higher than PA state emissions average? If that's true, select true. If you think that that's actually lower than the PA state emissions, select false. We've got a split here. So about 14 people think that's false, that Cuyahoga County is actually less than the state average. And the other half are looking at this is true. So the answer is, oops, sorry, my bad. Go back. Missed the answer. Cuyahoga is actually less than the state average and obviously less than Allegheny County's average. They're at about 15.3 metric tons of CO2 per person. And so we have a ways to go compared to some of our neighbors in reducing emissions per person. So now we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty details per sector of these emissions that we're seeing. So in our building sector, we already mentioned that this is just over half of the total emissions in 2024. And this is broken into about 6 categories. 5 categories, I apologize, I can't count. 5 categories. The largest is our residential sector, so about a third of these emissions specifically from buildings comes from residents. Another third comes from our commercial properties. Our industrial sector comes about 15%. We have an other category, which is kind of lighting, transmission, electric distribution losses, only at about 2%. This category here called non-utility fuel consumption is about 20%. It seems high. And so what that means is in Allegheny County, we have a decent number of folks that are not using natural gas for fuel. They're using propane or fuel oil or something similar for their heating needs. And so it's most likely that this 20% is from our residential sector for heating. And so it's a pretty big number there, which is some things that we can think about as we talk about strategies. I also want to note that just for the building sector, we've seen a 25% decrease in emissions since 2019 compared to our 2024. Some of our opportunities for us to think about ways to reduce the emissions specifically from this sector is through renewable energy installations, LED retrofits within our commercial properties, and more. Our transportation sector next. So this is about 17% of the total emissions from 2024, and it's broken into 3 categories. And we can see our largest there, hopefully no surprise, is our on-road category. And so these emissions are specifically thinking about those who are taking cars, our buses, our trucks that are driving on the roads. We have our transit, which accounts for our rail, our trains, our public trains, and then you also have your freight rail. So that's our commercial rail coming in and out of the county. And so our biggest opportunity here and our biggest contributor is obviously around public transit and encouraging more public transit. We did see a decrease from 2019, about 13%, so still on the right track. And as I mentioned, some opportunities for us to think about reducing these emissions is looking at active transportation, encouraging more folks to use our bus and our T system, looking at electric vehicles and other alternative fuels for vehicles. So some great opportunities and looking for feedback as we kind of get into this in a little bit here. Our next sector is our waste sector. A little small compared to the other ones, so just over 3% of the total emissions from 2019 or from 2024. And this is 2 main categories. Landfill waste, so everything that we send to our landfills instead of recycling or composting. And then we have our wastewater processing space. And so that is basically things that are going through our sewer authorities like Alcoastan, any emissions related to processing and treating our wastewater. Again, we still saw a decrease from 2019 to 2024, 13%, so excited. And there's some opportunities here for us to think about how can we encourage more recycling? How can we create more recycling opportunities for some of our harder to recycle materials and opportunities for thinking through composting? So our last kind of emissions-based category is our industry. And so we did talk, there was a little industry contributing emissions in the building sector. And so this particular category of emissions is related to product uses as well as industrial processes. So not necessarily the electric or heating within those industrial spaces, but around the manufacturing side. And we did see a decrease from 2019, still within this sector, about 11%. So that's exciting to see. And some opportunities that the county's been thinking about where we can help support our industrial businesses within Allegheny County is we can look at models of more sustainable options for specific industrial businesses, providing best practices to reduce those industrial pollution. We can use those as case studies. They can help showcase where it's been done before. In addition, we can help be supportive for funding opportunities for these businesses. RISE PA is a grant program through the state that is bringing specifically for industrial businesses funding for energy efficiency upgrades to their facilities. In addition, the county economic development helps to initiate or to help support the CPACE program, which is a loan program through property taxes that is specifically targeted for energy efficiency upgrades to commercial properties. And so there's some ways that we can think through this, and we encourage you to share your thoughts as well. So we've got through the emission side of it. The last pieces that we want to talk about here is the forestry. So again, forestry is not a contributor to our carbon emissions inventory. It's actually a carbon sink. And so the more we can maintain our tree canopy, our green spaces, the better off we are. And so for this category, about 4% of our carbon emissions are offset based on the tree canopy and green space within Allegheny County. And so again, making sure that we're increasing our tree canopy, preserving existing tree canopy and green space, and look forward to other thoughts from the attendees here and our residents on additional strategies that we can do to help maintain that. All right, now we're going to jump into some more engagement. This is an opportunity for you to start thinking about strategies. So for this first question, how can we contribute to a more equitable and inclusive region and reduce carbon emissions? So balancing those two. You'll see in front of you a couple of strategies that we have come up with. You can pick as many as you want or just one. We're looking for your suggestions on which ones you think would be effective. And again, if you don't have time to answer it within the time limit, you'll still have the same opportunity on the county's engagement website to provide us that feedback. Okay. So looks like right now we have a lot of folks excited about making sure that engagement meaningfully informs the plan and its implementation, which we really appreciate. We don't want folks to just provide feedback that ends up not impacting the plan at all. This plan should be a plan for our residents and for our communities. Another close one here is to continue building strong partnerships, which is excellent. And then some ties here around addressing historical inequities, supporting existing efforts, and being transparent about our decision making, which are all important pieces. And still some support for telling stories from across the region. So on the next slide, and I'm going to give you just a little more time, so I figured I will give you a heads up. We're going to ask the same question. How can we contribute to a more equitable and inclusive region and reduce carbon emissions? But this is an opportunity for you to put in exactly what you're looking for. So this is an open-ended question. You can enter your strategy suggestions and they'll pop up on the screen here. I believe you have about a minute and a half to type. You can only add one, but if you are looking to add more, again, I'll refer you to the county's engagement website, and we'll make sure that it ends up in the chat. It has been a couple of times, and you can provide your feedback there. So I'm going to go to our next section here for you. So again, how can we contribute to a more equitable and inclusive region and reduce carbon emissions? So feel free to start typing away. Got about 30 more seconds if you want to start making sure you're finishing up whatever you're entering so that we can take a look at everyone's suggestions. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read out a couple of these suggestions. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. So we've got some folks that are suggesting ensure bike and ped access to transit routes, more public transit, more public transit. I see some common themes here. Require and subsidize use of renewable energy, support grassroots and community efforts to establish green spaces and expand access to renewable energy. So again, renewable energy support. Include Indigenous practices and Indigenous people in these efforts. Great suggestion. Work with historically underserved groups to understand their needs. And again, more public transit, expand the T. Trees in all neighborhoods and funding for their maintenance. That's key. We've heard from several municipalities and folks in general that the maintenance piece of planting trees and green infrastructure is always really difficult. And so making sure that we have some support for that. Engage community deeply in just transition. So more parks, more distributed energy installations, planning for county-owned vacant land. Transition Edgar Thomas away from coal-based steelmaking to clean steelmaking with clean hydrogen-based direct reduced iron technology. Thank you for the suggestion. Providing economic opportunities and training in green sectors. That's great. Figure out ways to make clean energy technology affordable for everyone. Empowering everyone with the knowledge of what we can do to support this effort every day. Support local zoning reform to curb sprawl, concentrate density along transit corridors, and protect sensitive resources. One here was enforce air emission regulations on Clairton Coke Works. Promote more affordable building technologies like 3D printing construction, suggestion of Icon. Group purchasing of solar and providing the energy for those who are not able to own their own homes in affected communities. So maybe some support for community solar. Engage with community groups in traditionally disadvantaged communities and craft policies with their input. Model policy implementation after the Biden White House's Justice 40 initiative so that funding, oh, I apologize. Scroll back. The Justice 40 initiative so that funding goes directly to these communities. Just so everyone knows, our health department has actually put together a EJ index, an environmental justice index for Allegheny County, and that is available on the county website. So that might be something for us to continue to consider as we think about strategies. Some others here, macro and micro focus continue to build strong partnerships across the region, but also continue to bring and support community projects that foster a sense of ownership and empowerment. Looks like look at GHG reduction options that do not increase cost on residents. I'm assuming, or burden could have been the end of that sentence. And then this one here, making sure this is done equitably, provide actionable support to those areas and people. I didn't miss any, but I thank you all for your contributions. So we're going to move on to the next foundational value and think about how we contribute to that value while reducing emissions. So this one will be an opportunity for you to look at some strategies that we've already identified on how we can improve human health and environmental health while reducing carbon emissions. So think about these 6 options here on the screen. Again, you can select multiple options, but let us know which ones you think will help us meet this foundational goal while reducing carbon emissions. Okay. So it looks like our top selected strategy was preservation and stewardship of green space and tree canopy. Great. Followed by active transportation. We saw that as a common selection in the equity foundational value as well. Supporting natural habitats, followed closely by healthy air, water, and soil quality, as well as healthy homes and workplaces. And still some great votes here on local and healthy food. So some great suggestions here. So before I slip to the next one, I'm going to give you some time to think. The next slide here in engagement opportunity is for you to tell us the strategies that you would like to see on how we can improve human health and environmental health and reduce carbon emissions. So you'll get about a minute and a half or so to think about your suggestions and then we'll read them out. Okay. So you can start typing your suggestions on how we can improve human health and environmental health while reducing carbon emissions. And again, as you're thinking about these answers, if you have additional suggestions that you would like to offer to us, make sure you check out the engagement website. It's linked in the chat for you. And if you run out of time on answering the questions today, you can again provide additional feedback on that website. About 20 seconds or so if you want to wrap up what you're typing, or it'll pull it up here on the screen. All right, we got about 13 suggestions. Take a look at those. All right, so we have some suggestions of planting more trees, enforce air quality regulations on major regional polluters, required reduction of lawn space with initiatives to provide native plants to homeowners. I love that. More public transit, a very common theme. Clean up industrial polluters and make them have to pay a real amount of money if they hurt the environment. A small enough fine is a price to pay to continue to destroy our environment. Ensuring existing emission regulations are enforced to the max helps stiffen the spine of PADEP. Reduce cancer and asthma causing air pollution from steel and coke plants by transitioning technology away from coal-based steel making to clean alternatives. Replant the indigenous trees in the male and female population method and reduce the amount of cutting of existing species. So cutting down some of our existing species and continue to replant new ones. If we are preserving our green space, we need to get a handle ASAP on managing invasive species taking over the city. Japanese knotweed everywhere, to name just one. This is something we've noticed in county parks as well. We have a significant number of invasives. We need to think about how to manage that. Holding polluters accountable to ensure clean air, water, and lower greenhouse gas emissions. More community garden infrastructure, continue to build and conserve green space and local ecosystems, eliminate food deserts, and I'm guessing increase green buildings. Identify priority segments of county roads for complete streets redesign to increase active transportation commute. Ensure there is sufficient, safe green space within walking distance of every resident in the county. And finally here, create an energy benchmarking program for commercial and multifamily buildings and enforce violations. Electrify county vehicles and push for electrification of PRT buses. Better air quality equals healthier people. Great suggestions, folks. Thank you. Right. So we're going to look at our last foundational value, and I know this is one that folks had more questions about. So this one here is how can we create economic opportunity and reduce carbon emissions? These are some of the strategies that our team is thinking about. And so if you want to take a look, select some of the ones that you think make sense for this foundational value, but also reducing carbon emissions. And then you'll have an opportunity to offer your suggestions. Okay. All right, so it looks like our top response was around access to transportation. I am not surprised. Appreciate that we're seeing such commonalities along a lot of these topics. The next one down that was suggested was around sustainable economic development, followed by workforce development opportunities, and then thriving local economy and creating quality and livable jobs. And it looks like, oh, and also tied with lower utility bills. The utility bills is definitely something that came up multiple times during our community engagement this summer. And so clearly on the mind of many of our residents. All right, so before I move again to the next one, I'm going to give you an opportunity just to think a little bit here about your suggested strategies about how we can create economic opportunity and reduce carbon emissions. And so here's your opportunity to type in your suggestions for us to start evaluating. And so about a minute and a half or so here. About 30 more seconds to type out those answers. Like we only have a few, which probably explains why this one has come up with some confusion during our in-person meetings as well. So I think that tells our team we have an opportunity to really think about this foundational value and better explain it. Still looking forward to reading all of your responses. Okay, got about 8 answers it looks like submitted. See what everyone thought. Bring back the harmony line. Okay. Increase youth awareness of sustainable local career options. Bring more sustainable employers to the region. Love this idea about youth engagement and awareness. That's something our team has been thinking about pretty heavily too for this engagement. Providing more workforce development opportunities at all levels in sustainable building practices. Align public and foundation partners to lean into opportunities and markets for sustainable industry growth, train workforce, prepare sites to attract investment. All good thoughts. And I think opportunities too as we think about the county's comprehensive plan and ways that we can align our efforts. Promote Allegheny County as a green energy technology center. Oops, my apologies, it scrolled. Uh, Let me start again. Promote Allegheny County as a green energy technology center and provide education and training in this type of technology. Provide jobs which encourage sustainability and incentivize companies to become more sustainable. Better pay and push for more funding for public transportation, expanded routes, while implementing subsidies for renewable energy sources to reduce emissions. Investing in creating jobs related to renewable energy and environmental health, such as improving air quality, create more access to resources around economic opportunity. If folks don't have to drive far to get what they need to live on, we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions as well as get more jobs into the community. So, more local shops, less big box stores. Use just transition principles to ensure new clean jobs are replacing fossil fuel jobs and that there's job training and similar pay. For example, transition the steel plant to clean steel to keep jobs and create new jobs in clean energy. And lastly, here, hire traditionally disadvantaged Allegheny County citizens to work on green projects in the county, specifically in their neighborhoods. Great suggestions. So I want to thank you all for helping us think about some strategies, providing some feedback. And so I want to talk about kind of what's next as we wind down our presentation for this evening. So our next step is to develop a list of actions and projects for our climate action plan to reduce those county-wide carbon emissions while also achieving our goals and measuring them against our foundational values. This list of projects will serve as our North Star for the county, for our partners, and for all of you. It's going to illustrate our path towards our vision and goals and clearly explain what is to be done and who is going to do it. As we develop this list, we want to make sure that these values are front and center. We want to make sure that the actions are going to contribute to a more equitable and inclusive, healthy, and prosperous Allegheny County while reducing our carbon emissions. So making sure that our strategies and our priorities reflect improvements to quality of life for our residents, as well as reducing those emissions. So I want to thank you all for joining us for our virtual meeting. We do have one more in-person meeting next Wednesday, October 29th, in Glassport at the Glassport Municipal Building. Please share with your neighbors, your friends, your family, or if you want to engage again, please feel free to join us. This will not be the last opportunity for engagement during this planning process. We're only here in phase 2. We will have another round of questions and community events in the spring as part of that strategy and prioritization phase. And so we encourage you to stay in touch and follow along as we continue to develop this plan. So I want to thank you all again. You can use this QR code here to sign up for updates on our website. For those who don't have an ability to snag the QR code, please visit Allegheny County us/climate action plan, and that'll take you to our website. You can stay updated. You can provide additional feedback. You can also email us through that website and ask us questions.